I need my sunglasses outside, but I might need them in here. My name is Tom Wittrock. My talk is going to be about vintage 50s Gibson Les Pauls, specifically the standards. So again, I guess there's somebody here. Hey, nice to see you again. All right. I'm sure a lot of you know an awful lot about Les Paul, so some of this will be repetitive, but I want to give you kind of a rundown of the progression of the Gibson Les Paul as it was invented and brought to the marketplace in 1952, going through numerous changes until the first series was discontinued right after 1960. Basically, I'm talking about the Les Paul Standard. Although they were not called a standard until 1958 and forward, it was the same model. Early on, it was just called the Les Paul model. The very first ones they brought out to the marketplace were done in gold finish. They featured P90 pickups, and they had a very long trapeze tailpiece that was designed by Les Paul himself. During the course of the years, from 1952 to 1959, Gibson made many small and, in some cases, large changes to these guitars. And those changes, as seen by musicians today and for the last 30 years, progressively improved the model. Unlike an awful lot of other guitars, the earliest models are not the most collectible because they're not the most desirable. The changes that went through the guitar improved the way it played for most people, improved the way it sounded for most people, and also improved the way it looked. Now, not everybody agrees with everything, so that's why I say for most people. In 1952, they were seeing the competition for solid body electric guitars from Fender, and realized it was time to get their model out there, and they hooked up with Les Paul, probably the most famous electric guitar player of his time, and possibly certainly one of the greatest guitar players of all time. They pulled out the design for the gold top, and they used this trapeze tailpiece. But the builders set the neck to the body at such a shallow angle that they had to string the tailpiece backwards or underneath. Normally, on a Les Paul, the strings would go around and over the top of a tailpiece when it used the tailpiece as a combination bridge. The first version, they had to wrap it under. This makes it very uncomfortable for damping the strings with your hands, because now your hand lays on the middle bridge. After less than 1 year, or maybe approximately 1 full year, they made the change to what we know as the stop tailpiece. Now, the only examples I brought up here today are 1959 models, so you'll have to bear with me when I point to some of the features. This is a stop tailpiece where the strings terminate, so that's why it's a tailpiece. On earlier models, there was not a bridge. The tailpiece sat at this place and served the function of both the bridge and the tailpiece. When they started changing from the trapeze tailpiece to the stop tailpiece, they increased the neck angle more this direction, which allowed them to put something further off the top of the guitar so they could wrap the strings around the top of the tailpiece. This changed the dynamics of how the strings worked through the tailpiece, the downward pressure against the guitar, and anchored the strings and the tailpiece thickly into the body through some bushings, metal studs that go into the body, changing the resonation and the way the guitar worked. Gibson never did guitar models as individual year models. They have done that in recent years, but in the old days, they changed things when they felt it was time to change. or they changed as they came close to the NAMM show. The NAMM show, which is National Association of Musical Merchants, or Merchandisers, is a trade show where all the manufacturers bring their goods to show to the stores. So sometimes when Gibson made their changes, they made them in the middle of the year to anticipate to show at the NAMM show. When I started in business, the NAMM show was in June. I'm not sure what it was in the late 50s, but I believe it was close to the summertime. So again, they did not make a 52 that was distinctively different than a 53 or 4. The changes quite often happened in the middle of the year.